And my alarm just went off. Of course, the alarm go off and I clicked the wrong button. Okay. Hello, everyone. It's Wednesday, Thriving Thursday. I say Wednesday. It's not Wednesday, it's Thursday. And so thanks for everyone joining us here on Thursday, Thriving Thursday Live. And we have a good lineup for you again tonight. And we have Lori and also Charlene is here. And so remind me, hello, everyone.
Hi.
This, yes, it's Thursday again, and we want you to go ahead and hit that like notification bell. So when we come live, you won't miss us. All right. And so really hope that you all have enjoyed your weekend, enjoyed this week. The weather has turned around, I think, in a positive way. We're moving forward with a lot of great things we got on our agenda for this week and also in the coming months. So we'll talk to you about those announcements coming up. And so we're going to go ahead and kick this off on Thursday. Again, we want to say welcome for your new subscribers. Go ahead and subscribe, like, notification, and continue to join our community and follow First Home Alliance. Charlene, go ahead and welcome my audience.
All right, guys. Again, thank you for joining us for our conversation this Thursday. We're going to continue the conversation from last week. I think we're still talking about reverse mortgage. But before we get into that conversation, let me tell you a little bit about First Home Alliance, who we are, the services that we provide, where we provide those services, and how. If you stay tuned to the end of the conversation, you can find out about receiving those services. So, First Home Alliance, we are a HUD-approved housing counseling agency established by our president and founder, Mr. Larry J. Laws, in 2002. After serving almost 25 years in the United States Army, his mother had purchased. Larry, I always say, is that the right order? Your mom purchased her home, then you retired, or you retired, then she purchased the home?
She purchased a home before I retired.
Okay, so I got it right. So before he retired, his mother purchased her first home at the age of 65. That was a huge deal because mom had never owned before. And I really want to point this out, especially for our audience who are listening, who may be over the age of 55, maybe over the age of 60. That has nothing to do. There is no age cap to home ownership. And so that's why I think this story is so important. Anyways, that really intrigued the family. Mr. Laws decided, like, hey, I want everybody to get that feeling. And so that is how the inception of First Home Alliance came about. Now, what is our mission? Our mission is to increase home ownership to low to moderate income family, along with serving our veteran community. The services that First Home Alliance provide, we provide pre-purchase counseling. Counseling, I want to buy a house. I Googled it. All I see is first time homebuyers classes, which you will. All right. If you Google, I want to purchase a home, that's what you will see. First Home Alliance takes it a step further. We offer one on one counseling for individuals who want to purchase a home, help you build that team, help you get to the finish line. We do offer the counseling, the education as well. We have our next first time homebuyers class coming up this Saturday. We'll give you more information about that at the end of our conversation today. But that first time homebuyers class, we have that every month in the Northern Virginia area. We also provide loss mitigation services. What is that, Charlene? What are you talking about? I own my house. Things are getting a little tough, a little rough. I want somebody to help me because I either want to keep my house, I want to sell my house. Either way, I need some guidance. First Home Alliance will act as an advocate on your behalf to help you do just that. Rental counseling, debt budget management, along with emergency preparedness services. Where these services offered, we are located in Virginia, Maryland, as well as the south side of Chicago. But again, y'all probably tired of hearing me say that. That don't mean nothing to us. Wherever you are, we can come to you because we operate virtually. And so, again, if any of the services that I just went over really piqued your interest, or someone you know could use those services, we want you to stay tuned to the end of our conversation so you can find out how you can receive those services. Larry?
Yes, well, Charlene, you picked on things that we're going to lead in tonight. And of course, we want to do a little recap from last week. But before we get started, in reference to the age, and of course, my mom did purchase at age 65. And when it comes to home purchase or any type of loan, there's a discrimination that discriminate based on age. And so that is not one of the qualifying factors when it comes to a home purchase. But also, in reference to tonight, we're talking about this HECM, home equity conversion mortgage, or in some called reverse mortgage, but in a way that it can actually be used for home purchase. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But just before we talk about that, Lori, can we just get a recap, just a little short recap for those that may have missed our topic from last week? Just a recap from last week, and then let's jump on the home purchase with the reverse mortgage.
Sure, sure. And I like to tell people, if you know nothing at all about reverse mortgage, just remember this: a reverse mortgage is a home equity loan. So the question then becomes, well, if it's just a home equity loan, why don't I just do a traditional home equity loan? And the reason is a reverse mortgage is a home equity loan that instead of being repaid each month, it's repaid on the back end in reverse once the final homeowner permanently moves out of the home. So as you move deeper into retirement, a mortgage payment can be tougher and tougher to make. But with a reverse mortgage, oh, there we go. All right. So if this is the home and you qualify, I'm just arbitrarily saying, let's say you qualify for that amount of the home equity. With a traditional mortgage or a traditional line of credit, when you take out money to use for home repairs or medical care or whatever, at the end of the month, you have a mortgage payment. And so it really doesn't fit well in retirement, or may not fit well in retirement. With a reverse mortgage, you have access to some of that equity, but there's no month-end repayment obligation. The loan itself, whatever you've actually taken out of the home, plus any interest on that amount, is repaid when you sell the home. So you don't need the home anymore because you've passed away, or you're moving to a different location, or you're going into managed care. At that point, what usually happens is the family will sell the home, the loan is repaid, the rest of the equity belongs to the homeowner or to the heirs. That includes all appreciated value on the home. So that's really all I'm going to say about this. I do have a couple little tiny YouTube cartoons if anybody wants to get a link to those. But that's basically what a reverse mortgage is if you're refinancing a home you're already in.
That's great. Yes. And I think that is a good explanation, a good model there to use in reference to the reverse mortgage. All right. And of course, everyone missed any information from last week, pull that video up, and also continue to follow First Home Alliance. And we have Lori's information if you need to get any more information on reverse mortgage, the basic. What is a reverse mortgage? Well, tonight we're going to lead into, I know we started talking about senior. Let me give you just a little bit more about the story about my mom. Is that, and actually how I started First Home Alliance, is because I searched basically in reference to where is there's a need, maybe there's a niche in the market. And so I studied business, of course, and had done a few business plans and started a family business. I did an import export. I did a few other businesses, but I was like, is that something I really, if that's where my calling, where I should be? And so I found out about nonprofits, financial literacy, homeownership, and down payment assistance programs after my mom had passed away, and the house was willed to my sister and I. And with that, we did not qualify for the subsidy program that my mom qualified for. So it was in a 504 program, USDA. And so by going in there and finding out about the wills, because we had a will, the house was willed to us, but there was deed restrictions in there and things like that. And we didn't qualify for the loan, but we qualified for the rights of the house. And so we had to actually, purchase the house out of that program. And so digging into the weeds of that, understanding that these programs are there for seniors, and not only seniors, but for low and moderate income families. And that's doing that research and being involved in that led me to saying maybe that is a calling, a purpose that I can set up an organization to help educate and also help individuals get over the barriers to home ownership. Over the barriers a lot is a knowledge. Knowledge is power. And so that's what we're doing here tonight, empowering you. And the focus that we're focusing on there, it is seniors, but a lot of us may not be at the senior level, but we have someone in our family that is a senior, someone, friends or colleagues, that we can take this information and help them. And so being that, we're going to empower you tonight in an area that is very unique to reverse mortgage, and how we can use that to do more than just get a residual out of it. And Lori, let's lead that into the purchase.
Okay. All right. Well, that is I love that lead in because I do a lot of first time home buyers. And we'll look and see how that works. So I'm going to use just my trusty old envelope here.
Okay.
And for argument's sake, we're going to say, this is where you live now. Wonderful home, but it's just configured wrong. You're getting a little older. Your knees hurt. Your husband's hips hurt, whatever. It's just not working, or there's too much yard, whatever the case may be. It's just not working. And you desperately need to get into this home. Here's how reverse for purchase works. You'll bring a down payment, the size of which is determined by the homeowner's age. The loan amount will make up the rest, and then you're done. You've made the only payment on that home you're ever required to make. When the last person on title passes away, what typically happens is the kids will sell the home, the loan will be repaid on the back end, the kids will get the rest of the equity, including all appreciated value. So instead of refinancing and staying in a home that may not be working for you and taking money out of the home, instead you're getting into a home that is an aging in place appropriate home. And historically, there have been two ways to buy a home. You either pay all cash, and let's say this home is a $350,000 home. And let's say when you sold this home, you put in a bank $350,000. Well, God-given horse sense says, got $350,000 in the bank, why not just buy the $350,000 in cash, do an all cash purchase? Well, here's the deal. If you do that, you've taken all that money you've just put into the bank and you've turned liquidity into illiquidity. So yes, you're in a better home, but you have no liquidity. You have no margin in the bank to draw on if you have an emergency. Let's say, on the other hand, and you say, well, buying in cash does not make any sense at all. We're going to take out a new mortgage. And then you get into the new home. You've got a big old mortgage payment that functionally is going to last the rest of your life. Whether it's a 15-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage, you're going to be paying on that either for most of the rest of your life or the entire rest of your life. And then one spouse dies. Now you've got all the debt, but half the income. So you've got to continue to pay that mortgage payment, but you're trying to live on half the income. With reverse for purchase, you get into that same home, and we're going to use that $350,000 again. You put down a certain amount that I can't tell you right off the bat what it's going to be because I don't know. I always have to take down somebody's age first off in the conversation. But let's say you put down 50 or 60% as the down payment. The loan amount will make up the rest. So you're in that same home. You still have money left over in the bank. And you have no monthly mortgage payment. Now you will still, because it's your home, you'll continue to pay your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance. And then if it's a condo, you'll pay your condo dues, or if you have a homeowners association in the neighborhood, you'll pay that. Whatever you would pay if you had paid in cash, so taxes, insurance, and condo dues or HOA dues, you'll still have to pay that. Because remember, those three fees are not a function of having a mortgage. They're a function of owning a home. So no matter what kind of home you own, you'll always have to pay taxes, insurance, and whatever, condo or HOA dues, if those are applicable. But as far as a monthly mortgage payment, you never have to make one. You're always welcome to make one. And I'm going to go back to my pickle jar. So instead of this being the home you're already in, picture this as your new home. You're going to come to the table with a bunch of pennies, pour those into the pickle jar. We're going to pour in the rest, and then you're done. If you want to, over time, you can add pennies to the pickle jar. In other words, you can pay down that mortgage. If you do pay down that mortgage, everything you've put into that home without ever having to refinance and pay more closing costs and so forth, if you pay down that loan, all of that you've put in there now becomes a line of credit, and you can take that back out again. You can never take all of it back out again, but what you've put in, you can take back out again, and that amount you put in will actually pick up a little bit. Not about, if you close today, be gaining about 6.5% in growth. So I love it when people do a reverse for purchase. And then after closing, start making payments. They don't have to be big, but anything you add to that pickle jar after closing will automatically turn into a line of credit. That is not required. It just, if you're in a position to do so, it can make a lot of financial sense and be really an effective wealth management tool. Oops, Larry, I think you're on mute there.
Okay. Yes, Lori. With that, in just in case the individual do decide to actually pay back, installments, payments to the loan, the money that they put back in, do it gain any additional interest or anything of that sort? Or
well, I'm gonna bear with me if I call it interest, because it's not really interest. So if you gain interest on something, it's taxable, right?
Correct.
Interest on a bank account or an investment is taxable. But it functions very much like interest. So if you've put money back into the pickle jar, so you've added to what you already brought that, you had to bring that, but now you're paying down the mortgage, that is growing. So if you close today, it'd be growing at about 6.5% month over month compounding, so that when you took it out, there would actually be more you would have access to than you had put in.
Okay, and I know we're talking about the reverse for purchase, but it's probably the same as for the reverse itself. Who's eligible for this reverse for purchase?
So there are two broad categories. There's the FHA reverse mortgage, and that's anybody over the age of 62. And if it's a married couple, only one has to be 62 or older. The other can be younger, but we're going to decide, or we're going to base the down payment on the younger spouse. So if one spouse is, let's say, 60 and the other spouse is 62, the down payment's going to be a little bit bigger, because the size of your down payment is based on two things. It's based on the youngest homeowner's age and current interest rates. If somebody's older, let's say they're 75 and 74, their down payment's going to be smaller. Remember, everything below the belt here is the down payment. So with the FHA reverse mortgage, one spouse must be 62 or older. But then there's the non-FHA. These are typically good for a little bit higher value homes, and both have to be 55 years of age or older.
Okay, super. Okay, and then back to the payout structure in these cases, and will the person in those options? Can you just give? I noticed some scenarios, the different scenarios in reference to the payment structure of receiving installments out.
Good. I'm glad you said that.
Yes. So can you talk to them about those options, and maybe a scenario in which maybe fit better for a person's makeup, family makeup, obligation makeup, versus another option of payment option that may not be so favorable for them?
Sure. Great question. So in general, you do one of two things. You either have a home you're going to stay in and you do a refinance and take money out over time as you need it, or you do a purchase. You don't typically have money that you can take out of a purchase, right? You don't refinance a home you're buying, and you don't do a line of credit, or you don't purchase a home you already owe, right? I'm sorry, messing up. So you don't purchase a home you already own, but you can refinance that home, right? If you refinance the home, you can take some of that money out. But let's say you've sold this home, you're going to bring a down payment, we're going to put in the rest, but you don't also have a line of credit that you can take out. The only way, if you've bought this home using a reverse mortgage, you came to the table with a bunch of equity, that was just your down payment. That's what was required. We put in the rest. You don't have any additional amount so that you can take out a line of credit. The only way you can do that is if you put in additional money over and above the down payment. So this amount has to stay in the home. If you pay off some over time, that becomes a line of credit. So Larry, your question is, let's switch back. We're talking primarily about reverse for purchase here. So now I want to slide that over to the side and go back to last week's discussion, talk about the line of credit, because with the line of credit, if you qualify for that amount, let's say that's $200,000, you can decide how you want to access that. So you can either leave it as a self-directed line of credit,
Okay.
and when you need money, you log into your account online and you take it out, or you can mail away it's called a draw request, or you can fax in a draw request, and you can tell them, I really need $3,000, and they will move money from your line of credit right into your bank account, and then you just write a check against it. So that's a self-directed line of credit. And again, I'm just going to reinforce, we're talking about a house you already live in and you've done a reverse mortgage refinance. So you can take it out as a self-directed line of credit, or if you know that you need $1,000 every single month, then we'll set that up at the time of closing. And then automatically, without your having to do anything, the servicing company will just move money right out of your line of credit into your bank account, and it's there for you. And then the other way is, let's say, I see this a lot with people with in-home care. They already know that they need $5,000 every single month. And so then we set it up. And this is, I call this the monthly stipend, or it's an even amount that comes out. Now, if you're getting $5,000 a month every month, at some point you very well may run out of that line of credit, so that you may use that up. And if you do use that up, then in that case, you may need to sell the home to get to the rest of the pennies. The time I most often see somebody taking out an even amount that's a rather large amount, they're at the end of life. So I've had people in upper value homes who needed another $20,000 every single month, but they were actively dying, and they had a terminal diagnosis. They knew they were probably only going to live a year, maybe a year and a half. And so they said, well, look, I have to pay my in-home caregiver $20,000 every month. So let's set it up so we can get $20,000 every month. For the person who's taking a smaller amount, like $1,000, that probably will never run out. So we'll get into some finer details. We might need to talk about this on a case-by-case basis, but my quoting tool, my calculator, tells me how much somebody can take out. And it comes in as though it were, almost as though it were another pension check or Social Security check. That kind of arrangement never runs out. So if you take out, if you qualify for $1,000 a month, that will come in no matter how old you live to be. And that can be a very effective way to increase somebody's monthly cash flow. And I have many, many people, especially if they do a reverse mortgage when they're a little bit older, mid-70s on up, and they've lost their spouse. So now they've only got half the income. They're trying to get by on $1,000 a month, and they're just not making it. They need another $1,000 just so they can pay their bills and maybe go out to, Chick-fil-A once a month or something, something I enjoy doing. Then we'll set it up so they can take out that even amount every single month. And then for other people who don't have a crying need right now, but just want to set this up to collect, I'm getting foggy again there, to collect that growth. These a lot of times are younger homeowners who are looking forward to retirement, and they want to just set that aside for an emergency and collect all that line of credit growth. That can be a good way to go. So very different scenarios.
Yes. And also, Lori, if once you make that selection, say if you're taking the monthly draws, and later you would like to make it where you take a different option, can you make a different? Can you choose a different option later?
You absolutely can. Yes. And a lot of times I tell my clients, look, if you would like to change the way we have this set up later, give me a call and we'll do a conference call together with servicing, because often my homeowners, they don't necessarily know the terminology, and servicing will ask them some in-depth questions. So I typically ask to be on those calls so that I can facilitate what is they're requesting.
Okay. Now, on the amount of this draws against the proceeds that are there, how do this affect the payback in reference to the heirs? How is this going to affect them? What happens to that once they pass?
Okay. All right. So the amount that's going to get paid back is whatever they've borrowed plus whatever the interest is on what they borrowed. So, and that's just plain old what it is. And I'm going to actually address another kind of tangent on that in a second. So again, we're talking about the refinance, not the purchase. So
Okay.
let's say somebody over the course of the rest of their life has borrowed $100,000, and then it's hard to calculate what the interest would be because we don't know how long they've lived. But let's say let's say they live 5 years after they've originated, they borrowed $100,000. And during that time, there's, let's say, $20,000 or $30,000 of interest. So the amount due is what they borrowed plus the interest on that. So the family can do one of three things. They can simply pay back what's been borrowed. End of story. Paid it back. They own the home. They're good to go. Or an increasing thing I'm seeing is they take out a loan in their own name. They refinance that debt into their own name. So now they have the home. Are they going to have a mortgage payment? Yes, they're going to have a mortgage payment, but it's going to be relatively limited, relatively small mortgage payment. Like I said, I see more and more people opting for this. And then the third option is they can just sell the home. You know, let's say they live in whatever, Cincinnati, and they don't want their mom's home in Florida. So, or the other way around, you know, they live in Florida, mom's home is in Cincinnati, and they say, we're not moving back to the cold weather. We want to just sell mom's home. So they just put it on the market. They sell the home. The loan is repaid. The family gets the rest of the equity. And then how that's split up doesn't have anything to do with the mortgage. How that is split up, just like you, Larry, between you and your sister, that's according to the will.
Yes.
I'm going to get up on my soapbox and pound my fist. Get that advanced planning done for your loved ones. They need a power of attorney. Get it done before the sun sets tomorrow night. Get that power of attorney done. They
Yes.
need a will, and they need an advanced medical directive in case something sublethal happens. Somebody has a stroke or a car accident or a heart attack, and you need to act on their behalf. How do they want that to proceed in case they slip further away? Which is what happened in my family. My parents did have their pre-planning done, but still my father, who was dying of lung cancer, passed out and collapsed in public, and somebody called 911, and the rest of his life unfolded in a way that he would not have wanted to. So have that power of attorney, have that advanced medical directive, make sure everybody knows about it. So, but once the home is sold, how that money is divvied up is determined by the will. Also, some states recognize something called a transfer on death deed. And I'm going to use myself as an example. I have my house deeded in a transfer on death deed. When I die, and transfer on death deed names beneficiaries. When I die, my kids will take my death certificate to the courthouse, and that house will automatically redeed into their names outside probate, so they can then just get that house sold or refinanced much more quickly than if they had to wait for the probate process. So not all states offer a transfer on death deed, but in Virginia, many states do. Virginia does, Washington, D.C. does. Other jurisdictions have something called a life estate deed. So make sure you're asking when you're buying a home or refinancing home, if there's any way to deed the home to make the transfer to your heirs easier and less expensive.
Okay, super. And I'm not, hopefully it's not getting into a legal thing. And I know that all situations could be different.
Mm-hmm.
How would that transfer of death deed work differently if the home was already placed into a trust?
Oh, then you don't need it.
Okay.
Then you don't need it. You simply don't need it if it's held in trust. Yes, great question.
Yes, sure. And of course, going back to my situation where, I just tell, it's easy just to say things happen and now the home is.
Excuse me for interrupting. So I'm gonna amend what I just said.
Yes.
If I could say something about trusts. So a trust, to oversimplify things, you go to the grocery store and you put an apple and half and a thing of oatmeal on the conveyor belt. Those will go by the scanner, beep, 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 beep. Or you could set up a brown paper bag and put everything into the grocery bag, and it goes by the scanner and it doesn't beep. The brown paper bag in this illustration is the trust. You have to make sure you put your groceries into that bag. You have to put your house into the trust. I have seen, honest to goodness, unfunded trusts where somebody had gone through all the expense and trouble of setting up a trust. They had not put the home into the trust. They hadn't put anything in that trust. So here they had a trust, an empty brown paper bag, and all these assets. So when I say, if you have a trust, you don't need to do the transfer and death deed. You have to make darn sure that your trust is done right and that you've actually funded that trust. You've stuck all of your assets into the trust. So anyway, that's a very important caveat to what I said a minute ago.
Yes. And speaking of the trust and the deed, what I was getting to, if neither of those in place, a will is okay, but you still have to go through probate. Okay.
Yes.
And so the probate, it took, they say 6 months. Okay. In Arkansas, it may take a little longer. And so, so we did have to go through probate. It just didn't happen overnight. But it's good that there was a will. There was no will, then it would have been tougher. But we did have a will, and it did have to go through probate. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. With this, where they're talking about the purchase or not, is how important it is to pay attention to the title and how the title is held.
Yes. So, I don't want to veer over into talking about legal topics. So I'm just going to talk in very personal terms. If an aging mother and an adult child are on the title together, I always ask them, tell me a little bit about why you decided to put them on the title. And the aging parent often says, well, if I die, it'll go right to the child. There can be all kinds of problems with that. And with a reverse mortgage, we typically want to do the home just in the name of the homeowner. So the home will be titled just in the name of the homeowner. And then we will title it either with the transfer on death deed. So after the parent dies, it goes automatically to the child. Or in a life estate deed, which works very similarly. It's a different instrument, but the end effect is very similar. If both want to remain on the title to the home, then we have to do the loan to value according to the younger person on title, and it will really cut down on how much the homeowner qualifies for. And the younger person must be living in the home. So if that person is in the home and on title, if they're not in the home, they have to come off title. So, so there could be all kinds of interesting issues putting a younger person on title, and it's generally not even the best option for them. It's just been the thing that somebody has recommended to them, maybe somebody that they go to Chick-fil-A with has said, oh, you should both be on title. I rarely see that being a good option, but talk to your attorney about that. That really is a legal question.
Okay.
Not something a loan officer should.
Yes. And so I think that is the compact of that is having that person on title. And how important is having a living trust. That living trust, would that basically impact the title the same way prior to the purchase?
Yeah. So a trust agreement, typically, there again, you would have to put the home into the trust. Mm-hmm. So, and some of these things become so nuanced that as soon as somebody starts asking me, I really want to back off and say, ask your attorney about this, whoever drew up the trust, or if you don't have an attorney, I'm going to give you a super important contact. I might even put it in the chat here. So it's called NAELA. Let's put it in here, NAELA. And that stands for except I spelled it wrong. No, that's right. So it's National, I don't have my glasses on, Academy, DENY, of Elder Law Attorneys.
Okay.
National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, NALA. And you go onto the NALA website, you can put in any zip code and then designate, I want an elder law attorney within 10 miles of my zip code, or 20 miles or 50 miles. That will give you actual, honest to goodness, elder law attorneys. This is a very specialized discipline of the law, specialty of the law, and they deal with where you are today until you pass away. So estate attorneys typically deal with your stuff after you're gone.
Correct.
Elder law attorneys will deal with you and your needs, your medical needs, your financial needs from today until we step into eternity. So I cannot begin to say how important it is to see an actual, honest to goodness, elder law attorney. If you're talking to an elder law attorney in conjunction with a reverse mortgage, I usually call the attorney and say, can you send me the legal bills that are incurred during getting the reverse mortgage? And we will put those as one of the closing costs. The reason that can be a good option for families is because if they're going to have to write a check for $1,000 or $2,000 before closing and they're already having cash flow problems, it can just be undoable. It's simply, I can't afford legal advice. Legal advice is so important. Well, I'm going to say it differently. The only thing more expensive than an attorney is no attorney. You want to see pricey bills, you try to go it on your own. Talk to an attorney. If you're doing it in conjunction with a reverse mortgage, we can invoice that on the HUD one and pay for it after you have that money available to you. It just becomes one of the closing costs.
Now, in mentioning that and those fees prior to closing that can be added onto the HUD one or the closing disclosure there. Counseling fees. Have you seen that the counseling is paid prior to, and also counseling on the other option, the counseling fee can be paid at closing?
Yes. So most of the counselors I see, most of the counseling certificates that come through, one of the two fees that are paid for ahead of time out of pocket, it's called POC, or paid outside closing, are the phone counseling sessions and the appraisals. So a lot of the counselors whose names show up on the list that prints out when we print their documents, I'm not sure we have any showing up right now who will pay, who will invoice it. What do you all do? Do you invoice?
Outside of closing.
Outside of closing, paying ahead of time, yes.
I just heard, I don't know, you hearsay, I can't tell you where it came from. Just hearsay saying that the counseling fees could be paid at closing, but we haven't processed one.
Very, very rarely do I see anybody anymore who will, time was 10 and 20 years ago, a lot of the counseling agencies would invoice it. But I don't think I've seen that in probably 3, maybe 5 years.
Right. We talked about the trust and the deed. What about the power of attorney, and what is your recommendation in reference to the need, or maybe in situations where it's not needed or not recommended?
Yeah, so super question. So for most transactions, for a lot of transactions, if somebody's going to exercise, so let's say the adult daughter has an incapacitated mother. So the mother has, let's say, Alzheimer's. That's probably the most common scenario I see. But by no stretch is it the only scenario I see. But so mom has Alzheimer's. Mom wants to live. She was very clear on this. The only way you're taking me out of this home is feet first, right? How many times have we all heard that? I want to die in this home. I don't want to just live here. I want to die here. Don't put me in a nursing home. So the daughter, in honoring her mother's request, is doing a reverse mortgage on mom's behalf. Mom cannot sign documents. She can't do the counseling. So the daughter provides the power of attorney and then will sign all the documents on mom's behalf. The daughter will also do the phone counseling on mom's behalf. But a couple of things. In order to use the power of attorney, we have to get a doctor's letter of incapacity. So a doctor has to write a letter saying, I have known Mrs. Smith, or she's been a patient in this practice since, blah, 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 2014. At the time she signed her power of attorney, she had capacity to do so. It is my professional opinion that she no longer has the capacity to sign legal, medical, or financial documents. And this condition, she was diagnosed with blah, blah, blah. And it's my opinion that this condition will not improve. So we have to have a doctor's letter saying, mom is sick, she can't sign documents, and she's not going to get better. And this is when she was diagnosed. Then the daughter can use that power of attorney. She'll sign all the documents. She'll sign the application. She'll do the phone counseling session. One quick word, we have to have, by law, we have to have the original power of attorney. So when you go to that back page either has to have a raised seal from the notary, or if you lick your pinky and rub it across the notary seal, if they use an ink stamp, it'll smear a little tiny bit. We have to have the original. If you do not have the original, then an attorney will have to go to court, and the judge will have to issue an order saying that this copy is as good as an original. That happens a surprising amount of time. It's not super pricey to do that, but there are legal fees. The attorneys typically will send me the bill. We'll add that to one of the closing costs. But you either have to have the original or you have to have a court order saying you can use a copy as an original. So make sure, all this goes to say, if you've got your mom's power of attorney, make sure you hang on to that original power of attorney. It's very important. It's much more important than you would guess. So power of attorney, you can't just go willy-nilly. If somebody has capacity, they've got all their marbles, you can't just use a power of attorney on their behalf for most transactions. There are some cases where you can, but in general, if mom has capacity, she has to do her own counseling. She'll sign her own documents.
Okay. She has to do her own counseling. Okay. And would that be the same as caregiver in reference to the power of attorney?
Oh, rare. Well, caregivers, if it's an outside agency rendering care, so you hire a care agency to come in, you can have all kinds of different arrangements. So you can, like right now, I'll tell you a story. I'm going to call her Mrs. Smith again. So Mrs. Smith owns her home outright. Mrs. Smith so her attorney Mrs. Smith is deep in the throes of Alzheimer's, and her attorney is her conservator. And the conservator has hired a caregiver. The conservator is doing the reverse mortgage. And so if you just have an agency caregiver coming in, an hourly worker, that person, it would be very rare for that person to also be the power of attorney. Sometimes the family are the caregivers. That's called the informal sector. So family is rendering care. One of those family members might be the hold the legitimate power of attorney. But if it's an agency coming in from the outside, unless it's the situation like Mrs. Smith, where her attorney is also her conservator, who's also arranged for in-home care, it would raise a lot of alarm bells if the caregiver were trying to do a reverse mortgage. What do you see, Larry? Do you see caregivers holding powers of attorney very often? Oops, I think I've lost you here, Larry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm here talking to myself. Yes, and so correct. No, we do not see caregivers coming in for that. However, most of the time it is an adult child. And I am having audio problems. Yes, I lost audio.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Continue.
All right, we're unable to hear Lori though. All right, Lori.
I thought it was just me, but I can't hear Lori.
No, I'm unable to hear Lori. No, the sound dropped, Lori.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
I can hear you now.
Okay, there we go. You're right. It really did drop. It switched. I could see it switch at the bottom of the screen. So did you hear me what I was saying about the pre-planning versus the emergency planning?
No.
No, that I lost audio.
Okay, so everybody on this call is going to do planning. You're going to do one or two kinds of planning. You are going to do pre-planning before you're sick, or you're going to do emergency planning. Pre-planning is relatively cheap. Emergency planning is bitterly expensive. Pre-planning, you go to the attorney. Don't try to do it online through LegalZoom or something of the kind. Go to an honest-to-goodness attorney, preferably an elder law attorney. Get those 3 documents drawn up: your will, your power of attorney, and your advanced medical directive. Get those drawn up. Keep them in a safe place. Let all your loved ones know where they are. They're no good if nobody can find them. Those 3 documents. Or you do emergency planning, and then it bounces into the courts. Your loved ones have to pay thousands upon thousands of dollars to get an emergency conservatorship. It's horrible. And I see families every single month. I see families having to do emergency planning. And it is a horrible, horrible message to have to deliver, because mom's now had a stroke, dad's got Alzheimer's, and there's nobody with a power of attorney to act on their behalf. You can tell I'm very impassioned about this because I see very bad outcomes for people who have not done pre-planning.
Yes, and I was just going to ask, what was some of those important documents to start gathering, and so you just let us know those things that need to be prepared. And yes, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, let me add a couple other things. Another bee in my bonnet here is, if you're an aging parent, make sure your adult children know where you bank. Where's your money? Make sure they know even little things like who are your utility providers? What are the passwords to your computers or any kind of digital assets you may have? I don't really do much online, but I do have a Facebook account. I let my kids know, here's my Dropbox password. Here's my Facebook password if you want any of the pictures off Facebook. Just make sure, think through absolutely everything. What are all of the things that you are just carrying around in your head? What's the passcode for your telephone? How are they going to get the contact information? Who's your primary care physician? Write all these things down, and as they change, make sure you keep that updated. I'm going to tell you a really sad story. I had a couple who, husband and wife, were both sick. They'd done all their pre-planning 20 years ago. They only had one son. He was their attorney in fact. He was the one who could sign everything for them. He was killed in a rollover accident on Interstate 66. So now they've got all their documents, all their ducks in a row, and their attorney in fact has now died Christmas Eve, and they've got nobody to act on their behalf, and they're both sick. So in that case, they'd done everything right, except keep the documents updated. I'm in the process right now of updating mine because I've seen so many tough outcomes from people who either didn't do planning or didn't keep their planning up to date.
Okay. Yes. And simple bank accounts, having any recommendation in reference to having someone else's name, additional names on the account and access funds, emergency?
Yeah, I'm kind of ambivalent about that. I think it's perfectly fine. I went through quite a long period of bad health. I went through about 2.5 years of chemotherapy, and every time I had 6 surgeries in 1 year. And, it was a very scary time for our family. And I had one of my daughters go in my bank accounts in case there was an unexpected outcome from one of my surgeries. I wanted her to be able to have instant access to my bank accounts. And some attorneys will come down on a different side of that, but having lived it personally, that's the decision I made. I did not put kids on title to my house for the reason I was just kind of ranting about. But as far as my money, I thought she might need to write some checks for me or whatever the case may be. If you have any retirement assets, an IRA, 401k, any of that kind of stuff, houses pass, as an attorney would say, they pass by will. You and I would say they pass through the will. That's not really, so they say it passes by will. Those retirement assets typically pass by beneficiary. So you set up who you want that money to go to. They're not usually in the trust. They pass by beneficiary according to who you have loaded into that. You've typed in their names and some other information. So they don't, but bank accounts also have beneficiaries on them as well. But in my case, I decided also to have one of my daughters as a co-signer on my account.
Super. Okay. And with this pre-planning, it's almost like a business plan. Sometimes people write a business plan and never go back and revisit. But and so a business plan needs to be updated. It is actually recommended annually in reference to
I believe that. I absolutely believe that. Yes.
Yes. And so what would be the recommendation actually for the person to actually put together a pre-plan? How often would you recommend that they revisit that?
Probably once a year. If things change. I mean, if you sell a house or if you buy a house or if you open up, if a rich uncle dies and leaves you $1 million, whatever the case may be, if things change, especially if an adult child dies, trot back into that attorney, have them update it, because you'll divide up the assets differently if now there are fewer people to divide them amongst.
Yes, and I'm sharing with my family to do annual plans, and so there's certain things you do in the spring, in the fall, in the summer, and things of that sort, but also on a monthly basis, just like you do your taxes. And so I would say your estate is one of those things. Set a month of the year that you actually go and visit those things, and on an annual basis.
That is solid advice. I'm going to talk real quickly about something we haven't really touched on. Why would somebody, and like I said, I do a lot of first-time home buyers, and why would somebody opt to buy a home as opposed to rent a home? When I started in mortgages 20 years ago, I just saw them as options: buy a home or rent for the rest of your life. I have really come to have very strong feelings about don't rent unless you have to rent. You are building somebody else's wealth if you rent. Also, what happens if the cost of the rent goes up on that property? Now you're paying more every month. And I'm actually going to preface this with saying, let's say you did sell the family home and you put a whole bunch of money in the bank and you think, well, I'll just use that for rent for the rest of my life. There's this old expression called eating the seed corn. I don't know if anybody's heard of that. I ask everybody and people say, I've never heard of it. So back a long time ago, farmer and corn just meant seeds back then. So let's say you grow, well, we'll use real corn. You grow the corn, you store some of it to eat over the winter. You store some of it so you can sell it as a money-making crop, but then you also store another portion of that to use to plant in the spring. But in very bad winters, people would have to eat that. They would eat the seed corn. So they'd eaten everything they had saved for the winter. They'd eaten everything they'd saved to sell. They had eaten the seed corn. So now come spring, they've got nothing left. If you put a bunch of money in the bank and you're using some of that every month to pay the rent, you're eventually very slowly eating the seed corn. If you did decide later, this is for the birds, I hate renting. Twice now, the homeowner, the landlord sold the house out from under me. I had to find a new place to rent. I was higher rent. It can just be this hideous treadmill. All the while, your assets are dwindling. If, however, you had bought right from the get-go, you had used that money for the down payment, had gotten into your own home, the appreciated value belongs to you. You're building your wealth. You have that asset. You can sell it anytime. You can take in a renter if you want to generate more income. I cannot begin to say how adamant I've become. If you've got to rent, then rent. I understand that can just be a thing. That can be a reality. If, however, you can buy, typically you will increase your net worth as opposed to just building somebody else's net worth.
Yes, I really appreciate you bringing that out. Yes, and we tell them early, if you can afford to rent, you can afford to buy.
Yes,
and you may have to struggle with each one. You may have to struggle to pay rent, but to make that house payment, well, you might as well struggle to pay the mortgages.
It's not strictly true with a reverse for purchase because you do have to have that bigger down payment. You can have gift funds. So if the family wants to go in and pool resources, we can pool resources for that down payment. That happens very frequently. But if you can afford to get into a home, get into a home. Absolutely. It's not, gospel truth that somebody's going to, it's not carved in stone that somebody is going to be able to get into a home with reverse for purchase, but you would be surprised at what your wealth looks like over time, if you can. And certainly if you can qualify for a traditional mortgage, do that as opposed to renting.
Okay. All right. Super, Lori. Well, we really appreciate you coming on and giving us your wealth of information. And I think you're an asset.
Yeah. And I ended last time with this as well. If you have a reverse mortgage or have questions about a reverse mortgage, give me a call by all means. I am here as a resource for you. Even if somebody else did your reverse mortgage.
All right. And so real quickly, just want to go over upcoming events, or Larry, do you have we're going to just go over real quickly the upcoming events.
Go ahead.
So we have our first time homebuyers class. It's going to be held the 16th, which is Saturday at the McCourt building located in Woodbridge. There are some seats still available. So please feel free to visit our website at www.firsthomealliance.org if you wish to attend or register. Again, that first time homebuyer class is going to be this Saturday, the 16th. Kickoff time is at 9:30, and that's going to be located at the McCourt building in Woodbridge. Larry?
Yes, and that is the end of our show today. Join us again next week. We will have a housing counselor on and continue to discuss and empower you with knowledge in reference to the reverse mortgage. So our housing counselor will be on next week. And again, I want to say thanks for Lori, and I'm going to put her card back up here. And we're going to go off. I'm going to leave the card up there so you can get her information. So continue to follow us on social media and check out our website, firsthomealliance.org, for all upcoming events. Thank you, Charlene. I'll see you again. Our audience, you all have a good evening.
Good evening. Good night.
Good night.